Hello my JAMStack buddies out in the YouTube lands. My name is John and in this video I'm going to be talking about the JAMStack. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about some of the misconceptions certain developers have around the JAMStack architecture. Now the reason why I'm doing this video is because loads of people come up to me and get kind of confused about the benefits of JAMStack. So just a little bit of background about my career. I spent the last 5 years building React, Headless CMS, JAMStack powered websites. Before that, I spent 15 years doing server-side CMS systems like your Epi servers, your site calls. So what happens is when I start talking about JAMStack, I'm getting all these developers basically coming to me and having sort of a misunderstanding. So people say to me, you know, JAMStack's just a fad, there's no benefits, or JAMStack's just useful for small clients or large clients, or, you know, whatever it is, there's a bad content editor experience using JAMStack. So what we're going to do is address some of these questions in this video. I'm going to set the record straight, going to walk you through some examples so you can make your own mind if JAMStack is a good idea for your website. Now, if this kind of content floats your boats, then also smash the subscribe button. I do weekly YouTube videos on the JAMStack, CMS, JavaScript, all that amazing stuff. So if you like this kind of content, don't be a numpty, hit that button right now. So moving on, let's get started with myth number 1. From my experience, one of the main points of contention around the JAMStack is people's inability to differentiate between the use of a headless CMS and JAMStack capabilities. So JAMStack stands for JavaScript API Markup. So when we say JavaScript, we probably mean React. When we say API, we could be getting our data from anywhere. However, we're probably going to be using a headless CMS like Prismic, Strappy, Contentful, one of those guys. And when we're talking about markup, we're talking about static site generation. So probably a Next.js Gatsby. Now, when you're building a website using a headless CMS, you could use a JAMStack approach, or you could power it using a SPA, so like a normal React website. And I think when some people think about headless CMS and maybe JAMStack, they automatically think about SPA. Now, when you're building something with a headless CMS and you're using SPA, it doesn't really give you any big benefits against a server-side approach using, say, C#. You're basically still following the same patterns. All you're really doing is changing the programming language. However, when you're talking JAMStack, you have 3 really great capabilities, which basically changes how we release things. First, we have performance. So because we're statically generating everything, our website's going to be as fast as they possibly can because there's no code to run. We don't need to worry about caching as much or CDN level caching because we've just got some static pages. Boom, it's going to be as fast. Now, the other nice thing about the JAMStack is the atomic deploys. I'm going to cover this with an example of Netlify in a few seconds. So with atomic deploys, every single time you make an update, say in your headless CMS, a new set of files is going to be created. And this means that when we're doing a release, we can very easily switch between different releases instantly. And because we don't have that caching or the warm-up time, our release process is really easy. So yes, I'll cover this in a minute. And the final thing that we need to think about is that we're decoupling our code and the headless CMS from our deploys. So in JAMStack, if your headless CMS is down, who cares? We still got all that static site. Let's say that you've done a coding bug which breaks the menu. In a server-side approach, your whole website might be broken because of a coding bug. However, in a JAMStack website, because we've got all that static HTML, our websites aren't going to break. So we've got a much less riskier deployment process. And for me, this is one of the key things to understand about the JAMStack architecture, is this basically decoupling of code to our website gives you a lot of benefits. And I've done, say, 10 JAMStack websites now, and the release process for JAMStack sites compared to server-side sites is just so much easier. There's no risk involved. You can easily bang out releases multiple times a day, so you have that benefit. So let's have a look at atomic deployments in action. In this example, to keep things simple, I've created a static HTML page, and this is going to represent our statically generated JAMStack site. So we're going to move into Netlify, and we're going to go to the deployments tab. Now I've got 3 different releases here, and each time that I do a commit, you can see that I've got access to a specific set of files. And from this little icon right here, you can see that it's possible for me to download each file. So I've got my download ready, I can open it up, and when I open this up, you can see that I've got access to my static files right here. Now, as you can see, I've got this preview deploy. What we're going to do is look at my JAMStack HTML presentation layer. As you can see, it's a beautiful green. Now, all I need to do, say for my blue site, is just go to publish my deploy. This has taken me, 3 seconds. Click refresh. What happens? My site's been changed. And again, if I do, publish to deploy, it's going to change. So this is one of the great things about atomic deploys. We have those individual files, and it's very quick and easy just to switch things over. Now let's say, for example, I'm going to make a crazy change. Let's say yellow. And then I quickly push this. What I can do, which is really nice about one of a JAMStack powered site, and especially Netlify, is I can lock my deployments. So let's look at this in process. So let's go back to our deploys. Let's lock our deploys to this blue one. So what we can do here is publish deploy. Now you can see that I have the ability to lock publishing to this deploy. So stop auto publishing. What you'll notice now is that when we go back to the home screen, if I zoom in, you can see that I've got a little lock icon right here. Now what we can do is when we push this new commit, which is called yellow, what should happen is a build will trigger. Shouldn't take too long, couple of seconds, doop, 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 there we go. And it's actually deployed in 1 second. Can't beat that for deployment time. Now, if we go to our website, you can see that it's set onto blue. And no matter how many more commits and how many pushes, I've locked my release now. And this is a really cool thing about JAMStack, is that you can do these atomic deploys and you can point your website to any moment in time. So in a year's time, as long as you still have the build files, you can swap it around. And this really does give you a lot more power when it comes to releases. So for example, now we've got our yellow build. I can go in here, I can look at my preview deployment URL. Look at that, yellow, beautiful. And then all I can do is go to publish deploy, it's going to go there. Now I can lock my deployment. Lock deployment. Got a bit overzealous there with my clicking. Now when I do a refresh, I'm on yellow and I can carry on. So this really does completely mitigate my release process. Not only have I got really fast web pages because they're all static, I can also switch between my release management super quickly. It only takes seconds, which is much easier than deploying a whole big application, having to wait for it to cache, having to wait to do some sort of like warm-up logic. Instead, I can just switch between things with one click of a button. Another common objection that a lot of people have now flagged with me whenever I've talked about JAMStack and Headless CMS is a degraded content editing experience. So apparently when we're using server-side technologies, content editors are having a whale of a time. They can do things like inline editing, they can have better views of their content, they can understand what the website looks like, which apparently is completely impossible using a JAMStack website. So, is this true? I have taken us over to the Storyblock website. So the URL for this is Storyblock with a K because it is trending. Now, one of the unique things about Storyblock is it allows for a good content editing experience. So going in here, clicking on this content tab will allow me to start editing my pages. And from here, you can see that I can easily move pages up and down. Now, if I start clicking on things, I can start updating the content and you can see the updates in real time. So as I move down here, the content editing experience here is pretty much exactly the same as any other CMS. So that's the thing, when it comes to the JAMStack, there are about 100 CMSs out there. All these CMSs have different capabilities. Some will have inline editing, some will just have a button which will allow you to preview things. However, depending on what your content editor actually wants, will all depend on which Headless CMS is correct for you. So just because you're using JAMStack does not mean that you're going to get a degraded content editing experience. Let's move on to the next point. JAMStack isn't very good if you have millions of pages. Let's start this conversation off talking facts. Yes, it is true that if you're using JAMStack and you have millions of pages, every single time you do a build, say someone makes a change in the CMS, you're going to have to statically regenerate those millions of pages, which is going to take a period of time. Could be ages. Now, obviously, we don't need to work with out-of-the-box behaviors, and just like, server-side technologies, it's possible to customize things. So when it comes to the JAMStack, we kind of have two ways of dealing with these massive applications. So first is the on-demand page building. The second approach is micro frontends. And for me personally, if you're doing any type of enterprise level development, micro frontends is just an essential thing and an essential pattern that you should be using. So let's have a quick look at both of these things in the action. First, let's talk about on-demand building. So this is known as the distributed persistence rendering technique, DPR. And on the screen right here, we've got the Next.js Netlify way of doing things. So what we do in this approach is that when we're configuring our website and we're creating all our pages in Next.js Netlify, what we want to do is define which pages should be statically generated at build time and which we can build and statically generate at runtime. So what happens, say your website's got 1,000 key pages, you can basically configure your build process to only build those 1,000 key pages. Then after your website's released, as soon as a site visitor goes to one of your pages, which isn't in that key list, as soon as they access the page, that static HTML page will be generated, it will be added into your server files, and jobs are good. And as soon as people visit your site, all these static pages are going to start magically appearing. So this is completely one way of boycotting those millions of pages dilemma. And as we can see, it also works as of Gatsby 2.29. So the static site builders have you covered. Now, the other way of dealing with this problem, and is a great approach, is start talking about the micro front end. So if you go over to the Martin Fowler website, you can read all about micro front end if you want to. And the important takeaway is that if you have a website that has millions of pages, maybe you don't want to deploy it as one single application, because that's probably a bad idea. Now, just like we have monolithic APIs and we split everything into microservices, when it comes to the front end, the same completely can be true. We can split up our website into multiple applications. I have worked in large enterprise teams where we've done this with React, and it works amazingly well. So in this process, what might happen is the homepage might be an application, your PLP and your PDP page might be an application, your news section might be an application, your checkout page might be an application. And splitting your website into multiple front ends has lots of benefits. First, when you're doing your testing, you don't need to test the whole of your application. You can just make your change in your small app, you can release it. This means that you can push code out pretty much on a daily basis because your testing is released, your risk mitigation is down, so things are nice. The other thing about a micro front end is that you can split your applications per team. So instead of having one team working on this big monolith, you can have multiple little teams, each working in their individual niches, and each team can then release per day. So as soon as you do this type of architecture, things are just going to skyrocket. And trust me when I say this, in the application that we built, I think over the space of a year, on average, we were doing a release like once every day or once every like 6 hours or something. So when you see this in action, it is a thing of beauty. Now, obviously, when you start splitting your application into micro front ends, the chances are that this millions of pages dilemma that you have with the JAMStack will suddenly go away because you're going to have a lot smaller amount of pages. So when people say, JAMStack is only applicable to millions, to small sites and not millions, I say it's not really true because of the on-demand building. And if you're doing a big monolithic front end, you're probably doing something wrong in the first place. To wrap this discussion up, let's talk about JAMStack development being too complicated for a new team to get started with. Personally, I think one of the best things aside from atomic deployments around the JAMStack is the tooling. So since I was a developer, back in the old days, you know, when I had a twinkle in my eye and a spring in my step, setting up something like a new website could take me weeks. So I'd have to set up servers, potentially have to install Windows myself, have to install database servers, databases, open up firewall ports, install software. It was a pain. Nowadays, I can literally set up a JAMStack website within 5 to 10 minutes, and that website is going to be production ready, and providing I pay a load of cash, I could have millions of people going to my website without a problem. So one great tool, if you've never come across it, and I've talked about it a lot, is StackBit. Now StackBit is great for people just trying to dip their toe into the world of the JAMStack. So all you need to do for StackBit, log in. If you've got a GitHub account, that's going to make your life really easy. In here, you just click on the big new project button. From here, you can see that we have an option to select from a number of different themes. And even down the bottom, you can upload your own theme as long as it's in your GitHub repo. So let's say that I want to use the fresh theme because I am silky fresh. Now, as you can see from this dashboard, I can pick which static site generator I want. So we've got the main ones here. I'm going to pick the Next.js. I can also pick which Headless CMS. So the good thing about StackBit is I can choose the Contentful or the Sanity CMS. So let's say I'm going to pick Sanity. Finally, it's going to hook me up to my GitHub. So it's going to create all the accounts for me. Now, all I need to do is click on this giant Connect Create button down the bottom. What will happen is that within 5 to 10 minutes, StackBit is going to create me an account within Netlify. It's going to create me a Next.js project. It's going to import that theme. It's going to hook up the CMS. It's going to apply all the access tokens, and it's also going to commit all that code for me in GitHub. And it does all of this for me for free within 10 minutes. So getting into JAMStack development and creating a basic site takes you less than 30 minutes. If you have any interest in JAMStack and you think it's been too complicated, I 100% recommend that you come over to StackBit, give things a play and see what it's like. They were the main key takeaways that I want to talk about the JAMStack. So hopefully this has given some people out there some insight that, you know, Headless CMS is different to JAMStack, and the JAMStack architecture gives you some great benefits like atomic deployments, performance, decoupling code from the CMS server, etc. The other great thing I think about the JAMStack is the tooling is fantastic. Compared to the back old days, you know, when I had to spend weeks setting things up, now everything is lightning fast. So what do you think? Are you currently using the JAMStack? Is moving towards a JAMStack architecture something you're interested in? Or do you think this is all a load of old nonsense and you're sticking with your server-side CMSs? Please let me know below because I am really interested in all of this stuff. Again, if you found some value in this video and you'd like to learn more about the JAMStack, development, productivity, smash subscribe. If you have found value as well, then please like this video. I spend, you know, a lot of time, I didn't get paid for this, recording videos just to teach people out there, and help hitting like will basically trick the YouTube algorithm gods into sharing my video to more people, so I'd appreciate it. Also, if you want to learn more about the JAMStack, I do a weekly Sunday newsletter which will have articles, tutorials all about the JAMStack, so subscribe, link below. Otherwise, hope you found some value from this video and you're loving the JAMStack. Hope you're having an amazing day wherever you are, and happy coding.